Devon Archer, the Biden crime family consigliere, now talks to Tucker Carlson. Archer just finished speaking with Congress. We learned from him that Joe Biden was on 20-plus speaker calls or meetings with Hunter, and many of those calls were with business associates. And Hunter is in big trouble now that one of his closest associates is speaking out. And as per usual, Tucker Carlson comes through with a major interview. Yeah, was not expecting to see Devon Archer on our timeline today, shortly after his testimony. But Tucker talked to him, and Devon exposes about the Biden crime family. Let's listen.
So you worked with Hunter Biden in a bunch of different businesses. What were the specific skills that he brought to clients?
Not much.
Well, at the end of the day, he had a career in Washington.
Yeah.
Graduated Yale Law School and had a very big network in DC, and
Thanks,
brought
Dad.
that know-how and understanding of DC and ultimately the Biden brand.
The know-how, so as far as I could tell, he wasn't doing legal work.
Correct.
He wasn't in the counsel's office at Burisma, right?
No.
So the network and the Biden brand sounds like the kind of key component of
Absolutely,
what
yeah.
he was bringing.
Yep.
Do you think that he would have been in those businesses, not having a business background, without his father being in a government position?
It's hard to speculate in those regards. I mean,
Yeah.
I think when we initially met and he talked about his advisory business, his business that needed to transition from lobbying to advisory and the interest in private equity, it seemed like a new and interesting network for us to expand our business. Whether he could have,
Of course it did.
been in that position, it's hard for me to speculate. But
Right.
obviously, the brand of Biden, adds a lot of power when your dad's the vice president.
For sure. And there was a time, maybe 10 years ago, when private equity, maybe like AI now, was just one of those terms people were throwing out, I'm in private equity.
Right.
But the mechanics, having done it, coming
Right.
from a business background yourself, are kind of complex. Are they not?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a complex business. Takes years of training, but again, the initial idea around the business that they were going to provide, the government insight and an additional network to raise capital and then, deal with regulatory issues that you might have at the corporate level.
Right.
Squeeze things
Regulatory
through.
issues.
Yeah, regulatory.
Okay, so that would be more his area.
Right, that would be his space.
Right.
That
but
grease.
did he have a sophisticated understanding of regulation, do you think?
I think that he led a team that had a sophisticated.
Okay, because I lived in Washington a long time, around a lot of regulation. Also, a very complex area.
Absolutely. I think you got to be an expert in knowing the guy, and he was the guy that was the expert in knowing the guy.
He was an
This is interesting. I mean, they have a very good rapport. They're laughing. He seems like he's smiley. He seems comfortable. Like he's just ready to blow the lid off.
expert in knowing the guy.
Right.
And who was the guy he knew?
Well, he knew a lot of people, but obviously there was some familiar, his brother, his father, some of his father's siblings. So he knew a lot of people. And obviously I know you're pointing to, the father being the key relationship.
Well, no, I'm just trying to get a sense of, Washington's not a money town.
Right.
People aren't in business in Washington for the
Right.
most part, and most people don't have business skills that I've noticed in 30 years of living there. So really the business of Washington is selling access. That's what it looked like to me.
Yes.
Not just Hunter Biden, but like,
Yeah, no,
that's
I
what
think
people
that's.
do.
I think that's one of the core misconceptions. I mean, it seems like when understanding a regulatory environment means selling access at the end of the day. That's how I interpret it, and I think that's how most people in Wall Street, whether they admit it or not, interpret it.
Yeah. So we've got a complex business that intersects with government. We need a guy who knows it.
Right. How do I, deal with getting a guy a visa that needs to come over for a business deal?
Right.
Call our lobbyist that knows the guy in DHS or used to work in DHS or, in Customs and Border Patrol or
Access.
the people at the embassy and state. They might be able to help. So there are very tactical elements that are regulatory and compliance and governance that you have to go through, and you got to know the guy that worked at the old agency that now has the lobbying firm that can go back to the agency and, get things put to the front of the line.
Or just call
So
their
the reason
dad.
I'm asking this is
Hey, Dad,
because
how's the
it's
weather?
not to give the Bidens a pass, hardly, but when people say, well, there's some question about whether Hunter was trading on his father's name, if you live in Washington, that's the whole city right there.
Right. I think you know the answer to that. At the end of the day,
Right, so
he
anyone
had the
who's
best advantage to do that because of where he was. And, we thought that when we went into business, this was a great opportunity for us.
Of
So
course.
I get it.
Yes.
And you're not the only one who did that.
Right. There were a
And
lot of
Hunter
businesses.
Biden's not the only son of a famous government official who's done this, right? At all. But I just wonder, when you hear people say, well, it's kind of an open question about why they hired Hunter Biden, that's pretty disingenuous, no?
Right. I think at the end of it, so when you look at there are people that maybe were, sons or relatives or brother-in-laws of other high-ranking officials, but I think what we ran into and with what Hunter ran into was almost like an Icarus issue. So he got it was too close to the sun. It was too good to be true, and the connections were too close and the scrutiny too much. much.
Yes.
And it ended up destroying, it left a wake of a lot of destruction in businesses over a number of years.
So he's been indicted. He's been asked to self-surrender any day now to serve a prison sentence. And we've covered before that he sent an email to Hunter, a text message, saying, why are your dad's political appointees prosecuting me for these crimes? I was just trying to do what you guys wanted me to do. And Hunter basically said, you're a member of the Biden family. You are going to be protected by us. Stop letting those demons bounce around in your head and just get back to work, essentially. So this feels very differently. This feels like somebody who has turned. I mean, the emails made it feel like there was a strong familial relationship there, like they were almost brothers and had been for a long time. But now he's openly talking with Tucker about this. Feels like a pretty hard flip.
So how many, it's been reported, and you have said that there were occasions when Joe Biden would call in with clients present on a speakerphone.
Right.
How many times do you think that happened?
I mean, over a 10-year partnership, I would, the number I'm going with is 20. That's probably the amount that I kind of reckon. Yeah, a lot, you could say.
So Joe Biden, who's very much a product of Washington, of course, must have known that he was calling in to effectively a business meeting that his son was having. I mean, he must have understood that was kind of what his son was selling.
Well, it's hard for me to speculate on that.
But I guess my question, just to keep it to the facts, Joe Biden, then the sitting vice president, knew that there were Hunter's business associates in the room.
Yeah, I think I could definitively say at particular dinners or meetings, he knew there were business associates, and or if I was there, I was a business associate too.
Yeah.
So I think, or if, any of the other colleagues from the DC office or the New York office were there. So yeah, at times there were. From the, to be, completely clear on the calls. I don't know if it was an orchestrated call in or not. It certainly was powerful though, because, if you're sitting with a foreign business person and you hear the vice president's voice, that's surprise enough.
That's a big deal.
That's pretty
Let me get the vice president on the phone. I help with regulatory problems. You have a regulatory problem. Let me get my dad on the phone. Joe Biden picks up the phone. Those types of phone calls are very, very powerful, right? The person's time like that just doesn't hand out phone calls for free.
Been reported, and I know that it is true, that the Hunter and his brother were very close to their dad.
Absolutely.
Which I think is great.
Yep.
I've got a lot of kids. I'm very close to them, talk to them every day.
Yeah.
Never called them on speaker during a business meeting. That's weird. You've got a lot of kids. You're close to them. Do you call them on speaker during business meetings?
Do I call?
I mean, what is that? A grown man calling his dad on a speakerphone during a business meeting?
Right. And to be clear, sometimes it was the call was coming in and the speaker would go on. So it's just the president. You have to be, you understand DC, right? So the power to have that access and that conversation, and it's not in a scheduled conference call, and it's a part of your family. That's
big.
Like the pinnacle of power in DC.
100%. I guess I'm pivoting against the lie that I'm hearing people tell with a straight face. Congressman Goldman, for example.
Weather.
We don't really know what was going on. Really?
Just the weather.
You're taking a call from the vice president and you put it on speaker. It's not just, hey, Dad, I'm in a meeting with some buddies.
Right.
It's, let me put my dad, the vice president, on speaker.
That's enough.
Yeah. In the rear view, it's an abuse of soft power, I'd say.
An abuse of soft power.
Nice, Tucker. Woo, nice.
Interesting. When did you meet
Thank
Joe
you,
Biden?
Devon, for that. It wasn't
Joe Biden I met the first time probably at the 2000 convention. I think it was in LA, and then Boston was 2004. So those two times I probably shook hands as they made kind of the power circles around the you've been to them through the skyboxes. And then following that, really when our partnership started in 2008, 2009-ish, conversation started. That's when I re-met Hunter and actually had a sit down and a meal with him. Talked about the transition from lobbying into strategic advisory, and then kind of some type of coalescence around having a private equity fund that would have this unique access and understanding of a regulatory environment in DC.
Again,
amazing. It's so corrupt. Perfect.
How many times do you think you met Joe Biden during the course of your relationship with her?
How many times? I should have this off the top of my head since I've been asked so many times. Probably same thing, 20.
So I got one last question for you, and we'll do a much longer interview and get the entire story. But we found this letter, kind of amazing. It's from January 20th, 2011, which I think puts you in your late 30s, mid-late 30s. Right. Okay, so you're a younger man. This is from the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden, to you personally, and it's personalized here at the bottom. Devon Archer, Rosemont Seneca Partners, that was your partnership with Hunter Biden in Georgetown. Dear Devon, I apologize for not getting a chance to talk to you at the luncheon yesterday. I was having trouble getting away from hosting President Hu Jintang, who was running China at that point.
Getting away from him, wow.
I hope I get a chance to see you again soon with Hunter. I hope you enjoyed lunch. Thanks for coming. Sincerely, Joseph R. Biden Jr. P.S. Handwritten, happy you guys are together. So there are many levels here. But here's the Vice President of the United States saying to you, a man in his mid-30s, who's not a government official, I'm sorry I was occupied with a guy who runs the world's largest country. I would much rather talk to you and thank you. What was he thanking you for?
Well, first of all, it's a lovely letter, and it was
a nice letter from the
It's quite enthusiastic. It's a little weird, though, right?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of the beginning of our partnership, and he was thanking me and thanking Hunter, I think, at the end of the day, for bringing this idea of this government regulatory strategic advisory business into the private equity world. And I think he was excited about the prospects for Hunter, and he was just thanking me. I think it was a nice gesture.
It was a nice gesture, for sure.
For sure.
Very polite. It gets
letter,
a 10 on the etiquette scale. But he's a vice president of the United States,
Right.
and he's talking about foreign business deals with you and thanking you for
Right.
that.
I think, again, it goes back to my earlier point I think I hit at the time, I think I hit the jackpot in finding the regulatory environment or company that can navigate right to the top. But, obviously as time was told, being a little bit too close to the sun ends up burning you.
For sure. And it did you, and
Absolutely.
you suffered greatly for it. And this is not a criticism of you. I would think as a business guy, you use every advantage. These are not business guys. This is the vice president of the United States. He's not allowed to be working on businesses with foreign governments while he's vice president, I don't think.
Not that I know of.
But here he is.
Right.
Amazing.
Right.
We'll be back. Devon Archer, thank you.
Thank you.
Tucker Carlson with a major get on that one. So my friends, make sure you are following Tucker Carlson on Twitter on that one, giving it a like, giving it a watch, giving it a retweet, a repost. Absolutely amazing, and something I was not expecting at all. I was actually really concerned whether Devon Archer was going to say anything, whether he was going to talk at all. And he did show up. We got a little bit of conflicting stories from his testimony yesterday. Dan Goldman tried to come out and narrative set this entire story, and then Devon suddenly shows up on Tucker Carlson.